So welcome to the Node.js NAPI team meeting for February 19th, 2020. We'll follow our standard approach of looking at what's on the issues tagged for milestone 11. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? No? Okay, I will then switch over to sharing the list there. Okay, so this one, let's see, open this one. Discuss 3263. Right, so this is the one that I mentioned last time, Legendarcast, and we talked a little bit about, and you said, hey, let's share some information. So I did do some additional investigation and think what I could be a fix, although, you know, not being the maintainer and being that familiar with the project, I'm not sure if that's the way they'd want to fix things. But I at least found something that did resolve the issue that was being seen. It had to do with sort of buffers and lifespans. So it added a, you know, using, actually here, we could look at the actual change. It uses a persistent so that an object only becomes eligible to be finalized after another one's finalizers have been run, if that makes sense. There's already code that made a reference, like sort of linked the two objects so that one could only be collected after the other one, like at the same time as the other one. But I think the problem is that because it was a JavaScript level reference, as soon as one became collectible, they were both collectible, and there was no guarantee that the finalizers for one would be run before the other one was collected, and that's what was causing the problem.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So this basically says, okay, let's do it at the C level, and it seemed to fix the problem. So we'll see if there's if that looks good to them too.
If you're creating a new reference on 362, what ends up? Oh, I see the deletion. 365. Sorry.
Yeah, basically the idea is that we create the reference which says keep this live, and then only when the finalizers for the first object are running will that be deleted. In which case, then that thing can be collected.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Okay. So I don't think there's, unless people have questions, there's probably not too much to discuss on that one until we get some more feedback from Anna in terms of as the maintainer of that package.
And then just for clarification, the issue was that args2 was being deleted, and that's why we need to persist it. Okay.
Yeah, gotcha. It's in I don't, you know, I won't claim to fully understand all of the code, but in this particular method write pointer, it's actually effectively writing a pointer to one buffer from another one.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
14 added, like 14 due to an update in V8 changed the fact that like buffers can no longer, you can't have buffers at the V8 level. You can't have two buffers that point to the same like block of memory or same pointer anymore.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, it throws an assertion saying, "Hey, you're not allowed to do that." And so that, you know, there's a bunch of extra logic added to this module to try and keep track of the buffers that were being created and all that. And part of that is to keep things alive and keep them actually in lists that say, okay, well, I've already created a pointer. I've already created a buffer which covers this area, so don't create a new one and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so I'll leave that on there just to see if until it closes out, but so there's the issues. Okay. Submission to OpenJS World. I think I saw the comment that it was submitted, right?
Yeah, with all of Kevin's information. So thank you, Kevin.
Sounds good. So I think we should just close that one out for now.
Yeah, and then I can report back to the group when we hear.
Yep. We can create like a new issue to put it together or whatever
Yeah.
we need to do. So,
Yeah.
okay. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Okay, this one. So I know, Jim, you were looking at this. I saw at least one PR in.
Yeah, I think we're done. I think
Okay.
I can't think of anything else that needs to be done here.
Okay. So we might as well close that out. Thanks for all your work on that.
Sure, happy to do it.
Okay. Okay. Stale issues.
Let's go up one more, Michael.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, I missed that one. This one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a PR going on the examples repo, and there's a comment on my PR that we might want to talk about as a group.
Which one is that? This one?
Yes.
Okay.
So the comment essentially says that we should at least maybe once mention that Node API was previously known as NAPI. Does that make sense, or do we just want to not mention that?
I think it makes sense.
That makes sense to me as well. Yeah.
This is in the examples?
Yeah, primarily on the README.
Okay, this one. Here, let's.
Yeah, I added my thumbs up there.
Okay. I mean, it could be called out separately. It could be called out as a quote.
Maybe just right after the link for Node API, put in parentheses.
I think so. Yeah.
Previously known as an API.
Yep. This is pretty prominent, right? So, like a C-based API guaranteeing API stability across different node versions as well as JavaScript engines, and then before the period, you could put in brackets like formerly known as an API. Because it is pretty prominent, because it's like a bulleted list right at the top, so people are going to see that.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me too.
Okay, I will do that. And then a lot of the other changes were in what was formerly known as the NAPI resource. So a lot of those are just markdown files.
Right, okay. Okay, so it looks good.
Okay, I'll get that change in.
Sounds good.
And then as I was looking around, I noticed we also have the ABI stable node repo.
Yes.
And
the one we're currently in, right?
Correct. And we might want to look at the README there, because I had some questions there. I actually have a PR in progress. So I could do the same thing and do the one-time call out that it was previously known as NAPI. But if we scroll down, we have badges.
Right.
And so do we want to update those badges? At least on this repo.
Right. probably makes sense to do that.
Now, if we look at the assets directory, we'll see that there are all of these badges are in the assets directory.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if anybody's linking directly to these or if they've just copied them. Right, exactly. So one idea would be to create a whole new set called, or we could keep the name. Again, this is all part of the discussion.
Yeah.
What we want to do here.
If there's a chance that people link to them, maybe we keep the name here the same, but make the graphics say Node API.
Okay, we could do that.
Is that a reasonable? You know, this has got much lower visibility, right? And we're not changing the symbols and stuff. So if this is something that, you know, would break things, maybe we leave it here, but change the thing that's going to be likely more visible behind.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it does. Because again, it's under the hoods. It's not out where everybody's viewing the documentation.
Yeah.
Okay, I will do that. And then there's one other thing on the README. There's a link to the team. Apparently there's a team on, yeah, that one, Michael.
Right, this one, yeah.
So,
so that's something I would need to change.
Yeah, if that's something we want to change.
Yeah, I can change an API team name.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's everything. I'll get a PRN on ABI stable node also.
Okay.
Oh, and I think the README even says it's a proof of concept. If you look closely, I mean, we don't read it.
We should definitely change that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If you see any other things, like certainly I know, like in the CPC one, repos names have been renamed, and I've come across a few of those as well. So.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Okay. Anything more you want to discuss on that one?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. You're moving things along, so that's
good.
Okay. Stale issues. Let's see. Let's go back to the bottom because I know that was a new one. So this is define iterator for NAPI array for using with range for loop or STL algorithms. I just thought it'd be good to see what people's thoughts are.
Yeah, as a convenience, it doesn't sound too bad.
So basically, should we say we discussed seems reasonable? You know, do you want to submit a PR?
I think that's reasonable.
What about iterating over objects? Because I know this PR, the request specifically says array, but there's comments about objects. Is it something that we should think about as well, or just only focus on array for now, or what?
That's a good question.
I wonder though, like you're probably more likely to iterate over an array. Is that a reasonable thought?
Well, an object has keys and values, right? So,
yeah.
So I mean, so does an array, right? And you can actually treat it as an object and get the 0 and the 1 and the 2 as strings.
Yeah.
But I mean, which one do we choose, right? Because like once we do, we're kind of stuck with it. That's, you know, like if we do it for an array and only an array, then it would be like you can forego the, well, actually, can you? Because there are such things as sparse arrays in JavaScript, right? Like you can have like 0, 1, 2, and 957 set, and everything in between is undefined, right? So then the length will be like, you know, 958, and you'll get a bunch of undefineds if you do that. So, you know, are we going to, you know, bridge that, or you know, it seems like iterating in JavaScript is a lot more complicated than it is in C++. So either we do it very carefully and we pick a path that works in C++, or we don't do it and we claim that, you know, arrays and objects are far more complicated in JavaScript than they are in C++. So iterating may be something that's application specific, and then we'd rather not do it. You know, I think that's kind of the gamut there.
Right. And 'cause I think it would be a nice convenience to be able to iterate over both. Maybe we can look and see how, if we treat arrays as vectors and objects as maps, like that one
Yeah.
comment suggested, we can see how that plays out, maybe, because I think that would be a reasonable thing. Like if you iterate
Yeah.
over an array, you would get its elements, but then if you
You know, you're
iterate
right.
over an object, you would get its entries.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because we already kind of support conveniences like that, right? Like we have like the square bracket operator for assigning a property, right? And so that kind of puts us in that sort of territory, you know, where, okay, well, if you can access it randomly, you know, then why can't you iterate over it? You know, like you can over such things that also have these square bracket operators. So yeah, I think yeah, that might make sense. But let's see a PR, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of where, like, it sounds like we're interested enough to see what the PR looks like, and we should keep in mind those other use cases. And
Yeah.
okay. So I will do that. And then let's go back up to, because I think that was the only new one. This one is closed. Okay, so we talked about this last time. When we sort of, yeah, we were saying we're not sure it belongs in any into the Node add-on API itself, but you know, we had some ideas. But it sounds like the original poster is Philip won't necessarily have time to think about it, so he closed it out. I'll take it off our list here. Okay. So Legendcast, you were taking a look at this one. I don't know if you have had any time.
I have taken into the copyable persistent traits taken into that, but I found that there is a semantics difference from the reference itself, since if we cannot technically we are of the Node API, and the Node API, Node add-on API has a semantics that those API are only valid on the main thread, right? So although there is no enforcement on every other API value, that is to say every other API value, it is copyable, and only Node NAPI reference is not copyable. But if we make NAPI reference copyable or add a new class describing a copyable reference, I found it is very easy to move the copy the reference to another thread, and it might be released. It might be released on another thread. So I'm still confused that this API surface may make it easy to misuse the NAPI reference API. So I'm very hesitant to say implement it in Node add-on API itself.
Yeah, I think so too, and not just for threads, right? Like if you create a copyable reference, that's essentially an API reference get value and an API create reference, right? So then you can quite liberally and inadvertently create a whole pile of references, right?
Yeah, right.
Unless
It's not cheap as we thought it as a copy, since we are not. This NAPI reference has the ownership of the NAPI ref, so we have to create a new NAPI ref for the copied ownership.
exactly.
So,
Except what about ref counting? If you create a copy, that's ref counting, and then basically when all the copies go out of scope, then it becomes a weak reference. It could be done that way, and then you don't actually create new references, right? I just realized that we have like ref and unref, but still it's very easy to lose track of the ref count, and basically you can accomplish the same thing by just refing it. I mean, we do have like a ref method to increase the reference. So basically the copy assignment would be like ref and assign, right?
yeah, right.
So I mean, in that sense, we could do it as like a convenience, because we already have ref, and so for the few people who need to call ref, they can just now do a copy assignment. And it would basically be an alias to ref, and then in the destructor you would do unref. But this is just sort of a speculation, right? Like I haven't actually thought it through, but this is what it would look like, I think, if we did it.
Is there any sort of finalization going on?
Well, there would. Well, let's find out what's going on.
I'm just thinking, like, if there's finalization going on, then if you copied it, you might not be deleting all the memory that you needed to delete.
Well, we just say NAPI delete reference. That's what we do. So if the reference is not null and if suppressed destruct was not set, then NAPI delete reference. That's all we do.
Right, but the only way to trigger that though is from the delete itself on the reference.
From the destructor of the reference, yes.
Right. Okay.
Let me just double check. NAPI delete reference. Actually. Okay, when you reset, there's a reset, and so then okay, you can actually call an API delete reference from reset. So if you like set it to something else. Okay, so let me make sure that there are.
So if you reset it, does that actually then set the backing NAPI 1 to 0?
Yes, I think so. It deletes the reference that was stored inside the C++ object, and then that C++ object becomes empty. So I think reset is basically like, okay, it hollows it out, basically. Right. And then you can set it to something else.
Right. But okay, so if it's deleting the backing, the C level thing, then other copies are going to be in trouble because they haven't cleared the printer, right?
Yes. So
that may be part of the reason why we don't allow copying.
Yeah, I don't. Let me see. So we do ref, but explicitly, and we do unref explicitly. So I guess what this looks like is that our wrapper is very, 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 very thin, right? So it doesn't add any sort of like it doesn't map the C API to any sort of you know, C++ level copying or anything. Like you have to
Right.
explicitly ref things. And but yeah, so but then basically, yeah, this can be implemented on top of this class, meaning that it's not immediately necessary for us to implement, right? So you could implement this on top.
Yeah, the author also have a example of how they implemented a holder class on the reference.
Yeah. Which issue was this originally?
Sorry, it was this one, which is
301. Okay.
301. See, because this would get you into trouble if you had a copy where two of them were pointing to the same reference.
Yeah. We
Calling
did
a
this.
reset.
Yeah.
Calling reset will delete that, and then the other one would blow up when you went to do anything with it.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess we'd have to like re-implement ref counting in, you know, here, because, you know, we don't have a C API for obtaining the reference count. We just have a C API for incrementing and decrementing. So yeah, we basically have to do that.
And another concern is that the reference semantics may make it easy to be used across threads. So we have to make the reference counting, like say atomic, to prevent any corruptions on the data. If we are going to implement it
Right.
in the
okay, but that's true even now, right? Like if you pass, or like if two, like, well, it's kind of true, kind of not true, right? Like you can pass a reference to another thread as long as the only thing that other thread does is pass the reference back, right? In which case,
the currently semantics is that the ownership is unique, so there is only one place can modify it. So there is no risk conditions currently in the API surface, unless there is a direct manipulation on the reference.
yeah, exactly, yeah, and yeah, I don't think we can do that. I mean, yeah, you can still. Well, I mean, yeah, if you abuse it, then it'll crash, right? I mean, you can do a ref from a secondary thread, and then that's game over. But yeah, I guess you're right. It's pretty good right now. So yeah, it may make sense to just leave it. On the other hand, you know, in the C API, if you don't use node.js API, then there is nothing preventing you from making a copy of it, right? Like it's just an NAPI ref, right? That's what you have, and you can copy that variable because it's really just a pointer. You can copy it any number of times, right? And you can pass it into any number of threads, as long as the threads themselves don't make any C API calls involving that value, right? Or that pointer. So but while you've passed it to a thread and you may expect it back at some future time, you can also use it on the main thread in the meantime. Like you can increment the reference. So you can say something like, you know, an API create reference, and then, you know, start a thread, pass the reference into the thread, and after the thread is started, you can say an API reference ref. That's perfectly fine. And then there's a value, there's a copy of it on the thread, but you know, the maintainer understands that is there only for the purposes of passing it back later. So for example, if they use a thread safe function and they pass the reference back as a piece of data, then the reference is once again on the main thread, and it's safe to make API calls to it, and it is a copy of the reference, right? So
I'm hesitant on calling this operation, like say, copy semantics. It seems like we are treating the NAPI ref, the value being a, like say, the ownership is still unique, and we are going, in the cases you mentioned, it's like we moved the ownership to another thread and then moved back to the thread function. So, and in the also the on the top of the issue, that is the example seems like they are using the NAPI reference in the same thread, but it's in the finalizers. So I'm suppose that if we can check that all of the node add-on API callbacks can accept unique, like say, unique pointers or any other unique reference that can be moved. If those callback can support all this move semantics, if the problem can be solved by the that is say we can solve the problem by supporting the move semantics in all node add-on API callback surface.
well, okay. I mean, if you're uncomfortable with this, then I'm fine with that. Like what we have now is okay by me. So we can just conclude that.
Yeah, I would say, like, if maybe if you can just comment with your thoughts, and that we're more comfortable leaving it the way it is for now. It sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I mean, this is from quite a few years ago too, so it's like if it was a burning issue, I assume there would have been more follow-up or pestering. So I think it was good to look at it, but if we're basically looked at it and said, hey, it's complicated, there's risks, I think it's okay to say let's leave it as is for now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, well, thanks for looking into that one. So that's good. This one, I guess we will, that was this one, right? So basically, if you want to do that and then close it out, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take that here. This one then is the last one. External data lifetime for buffer and array buffer. Let's see if there's. Okay, so I guess Nick was looking at that. We'll skip until next time since he wasn't able to make it today, and we already talked about the last one. That's good. Tracking issues. I don't know if there's nothing there new, but we'll do our usual just to see. Node add-on npm.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, so it still looks like it's trended down a little. I never know that. It's funny how there's like some, like this, I don't know what happened there, but
Christmas happened there, and actually I checked yesterday, and there was a much bigger there was a much bigger drop right at the edge there, and I was suspecting that it's because of Chinese New Year, but
okay,
pretty big celebration. But now it seems to have recovered, so I don't know. Maybe maybe that was like week to date, and now they've aggregated it. So
there is a massive network issues in China to connecting to npm. So there is many mirrors of npm. So those mirror sites download status might not reflect on npm. So that might be the case.
Oh, okay.
I do notice
it seems to have recovered.
I do notice that there seems to be some funniness as to like when you check it in the week.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, it's maybe this is like the week to date, but we're not at the end of the week, right? So
Yeah. You
Anyway.
can still get a large spike on the last day.
this big dip, like all the modules across the repository basically had that. So I don't know. Anyway.
Yep.
Okay. In terms of issues, so let's look at, are there any issues people want to bring forward that we should talk about?
Yeah, there is a issue I posted in the node core repo.
Okay. Do you know which issue that is?
Let me check.
Let me just here, I can search on Node API too. I think it was the one I'd suggest we waited for you to come back and comment.
It's the Reddit confirmed bug label in the
This one,
bottom.
okay, right.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that
So
one.
I have updated the reproduction to reflect the weak reference crash on the weak reference. That is to say, we have it's not like very identical to the black key test case or my internal observation, but it's quite similar in the case. There is the difference is that how the race condition between the ref base finalize and that is to say not the environment teardown and the garbage collection on the reference deletion. So, however, it's the case reproduced is very similar on the weak reference.
I'm trying to reproduce it locally right now. I'm building Node.js with like debug symbols and stuff. So I'm ready to reproduce this like soonish.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so this one, okay, this is the PR who was,
This
is the one we talked about before. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this does fix a crash, but it's
right.
Those two are two different cases, but it's related.
Okay.
It's very happened in the just identical in the same place.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to sort of extricate the sequence of calls that this node add-on API.cc makes, because I'd like to get rid of the node add-on API component so that we can sort of refine this into another test case for Node Core.
Node add-on API is just making the crash much more harder for developers to figure out what's happening. It can be implemented in the pure C API.
Yeah, that's what I'm planning on doing.
Right.
Is to just, yeah.
Okay, so this test case you think is closer to what's actually causing that intermittent failure that we're seeing?
Yeah, it's very similar.
Okay.
The GC is hard to determine when it will happen, so I just crafted a case that forces the GC to happen in time.
Yep. No, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'll try to whittle this down to like something that we can add to the tests, and it's probably gonna end up being in like Node API, not JS native API, because I don't think we can use like the GC in JS native API because it's supposed to be like, engine agnostic. So I'll see where I'll add the test case, but I'll try to whittle it down.
Yeah, great.
Sounds good.
So, I also had one thing. We have enough material for an NAPI or Node API, in this case version 8. Because if you look at ABI stable Node, I think I have that tracking issue.
Sure.
It's 406 in ABI stable Node. Yeah, so it's issue 406. Yeah, that one. No, yeah, that's one. Yeah, so all of these things are complete now, right? Like we have freeze, seal, we have more property defaults, we have type tagging, async cleanup hooks. this is a lot of material, right?
Yep.
And so, you know, none of this is going to go into 10. So then it's a question of, shall we wait until April and then publish along with 16, and then, you know, we can more easily claim to have an API 8 in all LTS versions, or we can publish now and then, you know, it's available in all versions except the maintenance one.
Yeah, I think that's fine in my mind, is like publishing now, and that like we don't have to push everything back all the way. The only thing is if we don't or can't push something back, then we're kind of stuck to never doing an update. Like, you know, if something in 8 can't go to 10, then we can't make a 9 that has some new stuff, right?
Yeah.
But since we're not planning it for it to go back to 10 anyway, I don't quite see what the downside would be to, you know, pushing that back to like publishing it now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just wanted to bring this up because I think it's we have a good accumulation, and a lot of these things have been there for a while. So, you know, the most recent one is this file name thing, and that one's probably not going to make it into 8, but all the others I think are plenty good, you know,
Yeah.
to land as a version 8. Okay, so
me.
shall I make a PR that defines an API version 8 and marks all these things as stable and all that?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Okay.
While mentioning the major versions, I just come up with that the anchor exception behavior, we have a question didn't come to a conclusion.
Sorry, which
the number is that in node.js core 365 and 10.
Okay, here, see if I can find that. That is 36. Sorry, here, I'll just do it this way. What was the number? It was
365 10. Yeah, right.
Right. Here we go. Okay.
Oh yeah, this one.
So the option command line option name since there is a node API renaming recently, so we didn't come to a resolution that if the command line option name will be just like naming NAPI or node add-on API for the new pattern.
Yeah. I would say that, so is the question like, should we use Node API or?
Yeah, node API, and
I think so. My suggestion here was like to actually make it something that takes a true or false.
Yes, that would be better. Yeah, and then have a default value. Yeah.
And yeah, with
having no in the name of the option just kind of makes it more complicated to think about what it means for it to be there or not. If it's just true or false, then that's pretty clear.
It also lets us change the default. Like if we do this and there's all sorts of breakage, we can then change the default back to false.
Yeah.
Pretty easy, like quite easily.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So having the name of the value be positive and then being able to turn it to negative with false and then back to positive with true, I think is more explicit.
That answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any others that here? If we, I don't. Why am I not getting the? Okay, here we go. I don't think anything else is too new there. Let's look at think that's the other one you already mentioned, which was the being able to get the name.
Those are just backports.
Okay, so nothing too much there. Let's go to. Just looking, there's a few new things. I guess I did open this one about a new release, and it sounds like Gabriel and Legendcast, you're already looking at this particular issue, right?
Yeah, actually, I've kind of reproduced it locally, but
Okay.
what I'm seeing is that it, like the tests are saying that they executed successfully, but then I get a notification saying, you know, oops, Node.js exited unexpectedly or something like that. And so what I've seen is that in a lot of our tests we spawn like child processes, and I suspect that we do them inconsistently, and in some places we don't check for a clean exit. And so even though the tests appear to be passing, they are crashing in some places. And so what I'm hoping to do is to sort of just like I grepped all the tests for like spawn sync, and a lot of them are doing it. And so what I'm hoping to do is to just have one facility that correctly spawns synchronously and correctly checks for a clean exit, and then just use that facility in all the tests, and then we'll see which one crashes. And so I'm thinking submit a PR that does that. I find that the tests don't pass, and so I raise an issue to fix the test, and then the solution to that issue would be a prerequisite for lending the PR that fixes or that introduces this consistent checking for child process exit, and then we'll have it narrowed down, hopefully.
Yeah, it makes sense. I thought also though that the test case that Legendcast put together was hoping to be reproducing this too.
Yeah. I mean, that's a reference issue, not a thread safe issue. So unless the thread safe function test is making use of references in exactly that way, then they may or may not be related, right?
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, let's just tackle all the crashes, right?
Yeah. No, that's good. So it sounds like coming at it from a couple directions, which is good. So
yeah.
Okay. Right. Otherwise, I don't see anything that's like needs to be. This one, I think, does anybody have an opinion on this one, or?
I'm not sure.
Like basically, it's instead of using type defs, saying it's basically changing just the syntax. My question was like, are there any compiler dependencies on this front?
Yeah, if this is going to break anybody is the question.
It sounded like it says.
Didn't we just using statements in Node.js API already?
Yeah, we are in some places.
So in that case, then we're already there, right?
Yeah, it's probably okay. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, using works better with like templates and stuff, like template parameters, because I know there are differences between the two, like implications for how you can use the resulting name.
Okay, so but this using effectively still just defines the same name.
Yeah.
Okay, and we don't think that'll change. Will that narrow any cases of how you could use it?
Yeah, I don't know enough about the using keyword to be able to answer that one way or the other. I know that you can. I know of at least one case where, well, I don't remember the details of the case, but I know that there is at least one case where it allows you to do more things than type def. So and it has something to do with templates. So sometimes you have to use you have to create the new name, the new type name using the using keyword. in order for it to work in certain templating scenarios.
How about that question? Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
And if there's sort of a no, it's then might be then we think it's okay to go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. This is another one. I know, Kevin, you've been involved in that one.
Yes. So I think this one makes sense to me. So then I think the only thing that's like missing are documentation, examples, and
Okay.
tests. So yeah.
Okay. So you're
Do
just
you guys think that
you're
makes? Do you guys think that this is a good change? Because then if so, we can make a comment to ask him to do those things.
I don't, it seems reasonable to me. It seems like a
Yeah,
simple
it's
addition
pretty
that's kind of
simple.
useful and so low risk and, probably useful. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
okay. This one actually is, we still have, well, we have 3 minutes. We may not have enough time for this, but
actually, the nullish one,
yeah.
it's actually more than just convenience, right? Because if you want to check for null or undefined, you have to call an API type of twice, right? Because that's what ends up happening. If you say is null, that calls type of, and if you say is undefined, it calls type of again. So in terms of performance, this would be better because then you can check the resulting value of a single an API type of call for both. So it's actually more performant to have this if that's what you want.
Right. Okay. No, that's good. So it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah.
I think the code that he did in the PR does both internally.
Oh well, then we should probably advise that they call an API type of and yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So
Get that
they
type
should probably
once.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there an internal type that we can use that returns either like
No. I
undefined?
think type just calls an API type of.
Right.
So yeah, store the value and then compare the value. Yeah, there's no point.
Oh, yeah, that makes yeah. Okay.
Unless the compiler optimizes it behind our backs. I'm not 100% sure, but if we want to be 100% sure, we should just store the value and then just compare ourselves. That would be 100% sure.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. I can leave that comment.
Sounds good. So this other one actually is interesting in that, like, it has to do with worker termination. And there's a case where, like, we have code that basically throws a fatal exception if it can't do what it needs to do. Because I'm pretty sure our rationale was that, well, if we haven't like set the exception or whatever, the developer wants to know that they're not getting the things that are happening, they asked to happen aren't happening, right? And at that point, we really don't have any other way other than throwing a fatal exception. But it sounds like there's a case where in termination, it's the throw. We're during termination, so we're already shutting down. And the throw basically says, well, you can't call into JavaScript. And we've overloaded exception, the like pending exception, which confuses me a little bit, but that's sort of independent, I think. Because having thought about it a little bit, it almost seems to me like, well, we probably still do want to be crashing because, you're trying to set an exception and maybe there's some cleanup or something like that. What I don't know is, and maybe Gabriel, is these the environment cleanup hooks. Should they run like will they run before you've, like,
Yeah,
while the
I
native
have to
add-on is still
double check.
running?
I have to double check. Let me
Okay.
double check that.
Because I'm wondering if it's maybe like the add-on needs to be aware of this kind of thing and say, well, you know, if you're going to do something that can get you into this trouble,
Yeah.
you need a cleanup hook and basically make sure you don't run any JavaScript related stuff after cleanup started.
The cleanup hook, the function signature for a cleanup hook. Let me just double check. Yeah, the function signature for cleanup hook is simply a return value of void, and it accepts a void star. So there is no more environment. It doesn't
Right.
it doesn't receive an environment, therefore it cannot use the environment. And so
Right.
so by then this is just a matter of just freeing a pointer. That's about all you can do. There's no calling into anything anymore during a cleanup hook.
Okay, because yeah, I mean the termination, I'm not sure quite what it does to avoid problems like on the JavaScript side, but it seems like through native code you can circumvent whatever it's trying to do to make a sort of
However, I
nice
found that
termination.
there is a NAPI, NAPI in the add-on finalizer in Node add-on API.
Sorry, which? You want to just paste it into the chat?
I send them. I mean, this function does accept a finalizer that can, its function signature can accept a NAPI in.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh,
right. Okay. So you're thinking that one will be called when the termination method is triggered as a, hey, the environment's shutting down, and once that runs, that finalizer runs, the add-on better make sure it doesn't do anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
That's. Yeah, I mean, you know, this was kind of the point of an add-on class, right? Is to have proper construction and destruction. So basically, map the add-on to the life cycle of a C++ class instance, right? And so you know, either you use set instance data directly, or you use the add-on class, and then all your data will be destroyed, you know, in the destructor of your class.
Right.
But you know, moving to the add-on class is kind of an overhaul. So set instance data might be more immediate.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is it's not even clear, like, whether the set instance data will, maybe it's worthwhile just leaving it at that to say, like, we need to figure out whether setting a finalizer, you can tell yourself that, hey, things have shut down, don't do anything anymore.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the set instance data finalizer does get the environment, so you can still make calls and stuff into
right.
JavaScript during add-on finalization.
Right.
Let me just double check that. JS native API H. So set instance data. Yes, it's an NAPI finalize. So the function pointer type is NAPI finalize, meaning env void star. So yes, you can still call into the environment. It gets called earlier than the cleanup hook.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, so that's worth experimenting with to see if that allows you to sort of know that you should no longer be doing things. So like if you wake up from a timer and that's run.
Actually, recently, since I have been testing the finalizers, so even though we can coding into the JavaScript, those JavaScript cannot create any timers or any other async function, async calls. Those async call will be closed immediately after the JavaScript execution ended. So it's rather meaningless in this step.
Yeah, I think in this case, like what I was thinking is that however they've set this up, if they have like some other long reading timer or I don't know what, like would it be that from this finalizer you can tell that you're now terminating and take a different action?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's the best we can for, right?
Right, like don't throw
now
an
the
exception.
question is,
yeah, go ahead.
now that's interesting. That's an interesting point, right? Like you can't throw an exception anymore once this is run.
Yeah.
So then how do you're throwing an exception for a very good reason. How else are you gonna indicate to the user that there's supposed to be an exceptional condition, right? You can't throw an exception anymore because JavaScript is shutting down.
Right.
So then
but
isn't a fatal
only a
exception
thread
the
that's
next
shutting
step?
down? Like it's only in the case of Node itself, I think I'm totally fine with it. Just fatal exception makes sense. If it's a thread shutting down,
right?
Then
yeah.
So that's where I could see like you could write your app to say, okay, well I'm node aware, I'm thread aware, I'm running in a thread, and I know better. Yeah, okay, something's happened, but I'm in termination, so I don't care. I'm just going to let it go. Or well, no, I'm going to leak, so
Yeah,
like
that's an interesting. I mean, even in pure JavaScript, it's an interesting question, right?
Yes.
If the environment is shutting down and you want to throw an exception, who's gonna hear it? Is going to prevent it from turning into like an unhandled fatal error.
Right.
Ideally, you'd want to communicate to some parent thread saying, "Hey, it's an exception has happened." But I think that's application specific, because I was just thinking, like, couldn't we handle this internally? Like, if you like this converting automatically to like to a JavaScript exception from like a C++ exception, this automatic conversion, couldn't we make that conversion a function of whether set instance that was already called or the finalizer for set instance that was already called and not? But no, I don't think we can, because we also don't know what to do if it's already been called. That's something the application needs to decide.
Right. That's exactly. Like that's sort of where my thought process was like, we without the application figuring out that it's okay, it really should be like, no, an exceptional thing happened. We have no other way to communicate. It should, as long as there's a way for the application to know they're shutting down and sort of override that, then that's probably all we should think about.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like, I mean, at sort of the node core level, right? Our workers, I don't know if they have like an exit code, right? Because that would be the way to go, right? Like a process has an exit code, and that's a pretty unambiguous indication that something went wrong if that's not 0, right? I don't know if a thread has like or if a worker has an exit code.
I think
that would be
does, but the thing is, that's really only useful mostly in like normal exit.
How do you mean?
I think, like as soon as you say terminate, I think all bets are off, because like the app doesn't really get to do as
You mean if you're killing the thread on purpose?
Yeah, like this case is basically you've called worker.terminate.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, then, well, yeah.
I mean, it might be similar when if it's
So but the
terminated
add-on,
normally too.
doesn't know that somebody called worker.terminate, right? I think that's the
No.
concern here, right?
Yeah,
And so you need to be able to sort of detect that this is an abnormal termination.
that's what I was trying to figure out, like how, you know, I don't think we should necessarily, you know, change things automatically, but can the add-on know that its termination has been called and say, well, okay, termination has been called, therefore I'm just, you know, if something goes wrong, I don't care. I'm not going to try and throw an exception. I'll just let it go.
This may be a good hook then. This set instance data.
Okay, I'll add that in there. And we are 10 minutes after, so I think we should close out for today. Anything else we absolutely have to talk about before we finish? If
I'm
not, okay, great. We'll talk to everybody next time.
Yep. Talk to you
Bye,
later.
everybody.
Bye.
Yep, bye.